Hello, Facebook or YouTube, Facebook, whatever. Addicted to the Q world. We have on Paul Buob from Smokin Ghosts Barbecue. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
So first, this kind of give a little detail. This is a very different kind of an interview. I'm not going to ask much barbecue team questions. This is more about KCBS, and you are running for the board of directors. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So what made you decide to take that jump and sign up or throw your name in the ring?
You know, a year ago, I think my answer to people was hell no. And then, over the last year, there's been a few things that have kind of frustrated me. And we got a few elephants in the room this year, of course. And I looked at my background at Caterpillar, and it was pretty well suited and aligned with some of the problems we have and some of the opportunities we have within KCBS to, correct, grow, and kind of get out of a little bit of the funk we're in right now.
So, what is your background in Caterpillar?
Well, I had 35 years at Caterpillar, and pretty much surrounded by IT technology. But while part of that technology journey, I spent time in procurement, dealing with suppliers and contracts, and then got into cost reduction. And, during the big downturn, 08, 09, we went out and did the enterprise cost reduction. I was the program manager for that. And, it was one of those ones that, if you didn't do your job, you may not have a job. So they gave us some pretty hefty targets, hundreds of millions of dollars a year to get cost out of the company. And so you find a way to motivate yourself when that's the case. But so cost reduction. The other thing, then I started working in Six Sigma and quality.
Yep.
And really kind of changed a little bit of who I am. Probably created a little more of the OCD that I see today in my barbecue as well. But that's part of the stuff that I think really plays well into where we could use it within KCBS. So I had strategy teams that I was accountable for several of our dealer strategies, trying to get out there. But all the process improvement, the defined business problems, setting strategic goals, measuring gains against those strategic goals, developing and defining portfolios for each of the product teams, allocating funds to those, portfolios, prioritizing the projects and opportunities, holding people accountable towards those metrics.
That definitely needs to happen because, like you said, there's definitely a lot of elephants in the room. Especially, we'll just go ahead and address one right now. Were you at the American Royal this year?
Sure was.
So when did you guys find out that something was going to go awry and you were not going to get awards were going to be delayed?
Oh, I was busy cleaning up. My son was with me, and he'd pretty much done all the stuff I asked him to do, and I was still cleaning up, packing up, so you could hitch up and roll when awards were over. And the loudspeaker system started coming on, and it was different than I'd heard before. And I think I want to remember awards were targeted for 5, maybe. And at about a half hour till, we started getting, announcements that, awards are going to be delayed. Well, please stay aware, etc. Just kind of stay out of the sun, because it was really hot that day. And they were trying to tell people, don't go out into the middle of the stadium, and stand in, they didn't want people to get heat stroke or sunburn or whatever. But it just kept playing on and playing on and playing on, So eventually, probably around 6:37, we got we're going to have this is kind of the mentality we heard.
So then, would you as a team would have rather them waited and made sure the awards were right before they announced them and had like what Atlanta Barbecue Store did some sort of virtual, or do you think they should have had awards just for the sake of having awards?
No, I don't think they should have had awards for the sake of the awards. I think first I classify the two issues different, even though the impact is exactly the same. The American Royal, there were a lot of process and accountability and hierarchy issues that were in play. So, if anything, that should have been postponed.
Yep.
Right? I just think we didn't have the right mindset and overall structure inside the tent to have awards that night. Now, but I understand what happened in Atlanta was not quite the same. It had the same impact. But I'll never take away the fact that if somebody wants to be accurate, to stop awards. I think that's within the right of any organizer, to not go forward with that opportunity. I don't think Brian did anything wrong by doing that. I think we had the first virtual awards competition that was kind of take a positive out of that. But I think in hindsight, which is 2020 usually, we probably should have postponed awards. Now the issue is the customer, the American Royal, is a much larger customer. It doesn't make them important, but you've got people who won't be around. You've got mailing all this stuff, and so the question was really trying to figure out how bad are these issues and what are the impact, and they didn't bring that home before awards.
Yep. No, because it kind of everybody's first thought was, well, did I miss out on a GC, or did I have a GC that I didn't deserve ever? Because it makes you wonder how many of them times it was swept under the rug when something was messed up.
Yeah, I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy, but there were only a few in the end. There were a few entries, and certainly Jordan was one of them, and I think it was ribs.
Yep.
As well as machete, right? So, it only takes a few significant ones to make a big impact. I got to remember, but there was enough issues, right? And the answer is, if it's going to affect one, maybe they're not a top 20 team, overall, but should we go forward if there's a wrong? I get the thought that, well, we can fix that later. But the answer is we've got to get it right the first time.
Yep. So what's your thoughts on, I've seen CBA that has a smartphone app or something to get, because I picture, and every people's, of course, the backlash on Facebook and all that, they picture, people with stone tablets and a hamster wheel running all the KCBS systems. And I've mentioned it to some reps and they say it's not possible, but there's got to be a way to update technology.
Yeah. I'm going to go here. So absolutely, there's a way to leverage technology. No doubt about it. And the CBA took, they're ahead of us with technology as a newer company,
yes,
newer organization, newer sanctioning body. But I would say that their judging process, I should say the training process of judges and the building the judge. We have, no matter what anybody says, our judges and our ability to train judges is ahead of most other bodies.
I would agree with you on that.
And then many of those will take them off the street, and give them the technology right there in the room and kind of teach them in there. But that kind of goes to the point I think you're making, is technology can reduce the needs of expertise, right? And I think we need to get into that. But the issue is that's going to cost money.
Yep.
Right. And we really don't have a ton of money to be spending on technology. And then you start thinking about the data entry tablets, right? So you start looking at the number of tables, the number of judges, how many tablets. I don't know how low you make those, maybe you can get them down to $50, $60 a tablet, right?
Yep.
Think of how many judges, the hundreds of judges we had.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of money for the Royal.
Yep.
Then you start thinking, well, but it's not, how many contests we have over 50. The majority are not over 50. But then you got to get them across the country all the time. So when you start looking at the dynamics of using technology for every contest, it becomes expensive.
Yes.
And I know they've had some technology issues in the CBA, but you're right, they are ahead of us, and that's a great. I would say that's a design point for us to be into the future, to head that way. But I think right now it's a bit prohibitive. The technology that we do have to score, it works, but it is not one of those technologies that I would say is robust, right?
Yep.
It requires that everybody knows how to use it. It requires that the reps are experienced, right? So, and we've got a lot of rep turnover. We've got, it's hard to bring new reps on quickly. And then, even with the last two events, you got reps that have never seen what they just saw. So even experienced reps are going to get caught, with the older technology. So we do need to update the technology, the basic score program. And we got to make it so that it's more robust, so we don't have to require the reps to be experts. They should be focused on administrating the concept test and managing everything that goes on, the tables, getting the seating, and all that stuff, and running the reports, auditing the reports. Not worried about trying to set up, tables of 6, setting the bit for 7, merging files and all this stuff. So, and again, the Royal is such a different beast than.
Yes, it is.
I mean, the things they do at the Royal, they have to because of the number of inputs they got to put in concurrently. So there's things we don't do at most other contests. No, we need to update the technology. We need to get money. We need to find money. We need to find sponsors. We need to do that post haste. We're 20, 30 years into this technology. This past, it's not even supportable. We get best effort support.
Yeah.
But then that leads to my next question. With KCBS already declining in teams and members, that's going to be even harder to do because that's less people paying dues and less.
Yeah.
What do you think was the start of downfall of members? Do you think it's the cost of contests? Was it COVID? Was it?
I think it's a little bit of a perfect storm, right? We were still rolling pretty well in 2018, 2019. I can speak for Illinois. In 2017, we had like 17 or 18 contests. I didn't have to leave the state of Illinois and have a pretty busy year. When we started last year, we had 4. So that kind of gives you the impact of
Yes.
what's going on. And the majority of the contests that went away was because, they had trouble getting teams, or the people that ran the contest just ran out of energy, right? Now, a sidebar of that is, if they're making tons of money for their charities or their purpose, they're probably not going away, right?
Yeah.
And that's the other part is that, not all of them are making the monies for the charities, so you gotta have profitable contests for the organizers. You gotta have people that are willing to spend money to get into the contest, and certainly the payouts have to be there, to help offset the costs. And I think, COVID was a perfect storm for us to hit into this problem where we see downturn. Contests, there are some contests took a year off, never came back, right? I mean, and that again says to me that must not have been that profitable if they could decide their charity didn't need the money or their purpose. So we can sit here and blame COVID. We can blame the cost of living and the lack of teams, but any good strategy, any good company finds a way to fight through that, right?
Yep.
The EPA had some of the same impacts, but they don't appear to be as harmed as we have, right? I know there's more 1 meet contest, more 2 meet contests, and I think there's some growth opportunities, in 1, 2, and maybe even 3 meet contests. But if you're asking if I have the answer, I do not. But I think we need, as a board, looking at our membership to come up with creative ideas on how to gain people back. And we talked a little bit a while back with some of the leadership on griddle battles. Right? We had in Illinois, we had the first griddle battle. And now is that barbecue? No, but it's food sport, right? And I think we got to be willing to look at who we are, right? And food sport is food sport, right? Dessert, is
Yep.
that barbecue? Not necessarily. Maybe other ways of growing. I like the idea of picking up, griddle battles or something like that, where somebody is not intimidated to come off the street and compete. If my neighbor is going to try and compete against me in brisket, he doesn't have Wagyu, doesn't have the giant smoker, doesn't have 150 contests under his belt, they're probably not going to do it. But me, who's cooked like 40 times on a griddle ever, and he who cooks every weekend on a griddle, he probably has a little more confidence to come out and do something like that, or a burger battle or something like that. We got to find a way to get the public and get some of the the people that are a little bit intimidated by the 4 meat contest to get them out and get into barbecue.
I've heard so many times too of teams going and doing a contest and then never coming back because they just get a bad taste in their mouth from these. Nothing against the big teams and the big boys, but they come in there and which you got to play the game to win, and they understand. So they just get kind of a bad taste in their mouth and they don't come back.
Well, I'll switch to the cook mode and not kind of the candidate mode. That's on us too, though, right?
Yes.
I've had 2 or 3 contests at the end of the year where I had new teams next to me, right? One of them in Ohio was lumberjack barbecue, and man, I was just smiling, listening to their questions, and they were to pop up next to me, and we had pretty good rain, so securing the tent, all the critical things, getting wet and all that. But I was trying to make myself available to them, right, without pushing on them.
Yes.
They had questions, and I said, hey, look, when I get done turning in, if you want to exchange and you want me to give you feedback, or I can give you some of mine, just to start you on the process of assessing. And they came in making the kale box was one of the things they came over and looked at that. But I think that's what we have to do, right? We have to reach out to the teams that are new, first, second, third contest, or even first contest, and we've got to help them. I know we're all there to win, but we are kind of a community that needs to build the next level. And as cooks, if we're not out there helping the teams, and in a sincere manner, not just in a, hey, do you need anything? Okay, bye.
Yep.
Stop in, chat with them. Get your work done early so you got time to answer questions or trimming or any other questions they may have. Yep. That's on us. So yeah, once they come to a contest and we lose them, that's on us, right? That I blame the cooks, us, yep. Right? Because we didn't create the environment. Because there's a lot of guys. So I'm going to that contest. Why? Well, do you know who's all going to be there? All my barbecue, all my friends, all my and they go because of the people going to be there.
Yep.
You don't plan for that if you are down in the dumps about embarrassing yourself. And man, I did that for a couple of years.
That's why half the people come to the Royal. It literally is just a barbecue homecoming. That's why 90% of them go.
It's a crapshoot too. You got to you got to avoid some of the bad tables.
That's the crazy thing about Grant with QU. When he won it back to back, it's like not only did you cook good food, but you got lucky 2 days in a row. You have to hit the right tables. Because I've on the judging side of that, I've sat there and I'm like, how do we even look at the same piece of chicken and I give it a 9 and you gave it a 7 or a 6, and I'm like, it's the same piece of chicken.
Yeah.
But
there's some things I think in continuing education with judges we can do.
Yes.
And that's where I get back into that when I was chatting about building portfolios and projects. If you look at it from a cook, we have priorities we see, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know, one of the things I go to contest, how many teams, how many tables? the first thing I want to make sure is that if it's going to be a 4-table contest, it's not a 5-table contest, right? And I'll I'll be direct. I won't raise my voice. I won't be belligerent or anything. But if I need to escalate, I'm going to make sure that if the contest has 25 teams, it's going to be 4 tables, okay, and not 5, because that creates the opportunity for an angel or death table.
Yep.
And you know what? I'll take my chances with the same 4 tables as anyone else. I think that's fair. So when as a cook team, that's one of my I work on that. And that's one of the things I get frustrated with, because at the Invitational, we had way more tables than we should have had by the number of teams. And so that's one of as a cook team, right? You look at me as a priority. Tables, correct, right? Number of tables based on the approved rep process manual. And then the second thing is obviously, I'd love to do something to get away from this randomness. There was contests where we had 3, 4 new judges never judged a KCBS piece of in a contest ever at the same table.
Oh my God!
And I don't care if they're going to give all 9s or give all 6s, right? It doesn't matter, right? The answer is that's a really bad design.
Yes.
And I don't think that's appropriate. So I'd like to see something there. Now, I take that portfolio of cook team items, and put it over here. Oh, by the way, as cook teams, I'd like to see higher payouts, right? Why not? So I put that over here. Lower contest cost, higher payout. Now I take my hat and go into the judges' portfolio. And man, I can't tell you how much I've heard the judges say, I applied, they accepted, I got no communication.
Yep.
So I went and did another contest, and I got an email, they need me. And it's like, well, you never got back to me. So we do have the portal in case networks. It's not perfect, right? And depending where you're sending the emails, put bounds, right? Some of those, you get into all those typical things. So communication on the judging side is one of the high feedbacks from organizers, judges to organizers feedback. If you let me know sooner, I can plan, right?
Yep.
Move the judges' portfolio over, and you start getting the organizers, right? And all the payouts and the guarantees, the sanctioning fees and all that. So
yep.
Looking at all these portfolios, and you realize while we are a big customer of KCBS, the biggest issues facing KCBS is probably growth, right?
Yep.
We don't have the same number of teams, which means we don't have the same number of fees coming from contests. We don't have the same number of memberships. And, just like any business, if you're not growing, you're dying, right?
Yep.
You have to grow, because guys like me are going to get too old to cook and we're going to quit, and somebody, we need somebody there to replace us. Mm-hmm. Sounds bad when I say it that way, but that's the truth. But so, we need to grow, and we need to grow profitably, to go back and deal with the elephant of scoring, right? And we can get mad at the reps because it occurred, but man, our technology is not easy to deal with, right? I'm not saying that all the reps have made all the right decisions.
Yep.
They are humans. Being punitive to them just reduces maybe the number of reps and puts more burden on us, right? So I really agree with the thought that our focus needs to be on the technology and growing. So
yep.
Hand in hand.
Yeah.
If we grow, we get money to work on the technology, right? And
yep.
then maybe some money to work on continuing education of judges, and then more money to work with organizers on how to build a profitable contest.
Yeah.
Corey Linton, man, he's made he and Jason in Lebanon, I mean, they know how to run a contest. They can teach people how to do that.
I think there needs to be some sort of, and maybe it's just my imagination, there seems to be a lot of animosity between cooks and judges sometimes. I feel like sometimes, I don't want to say that the judges get blamed, but which they do. And I, as the cook team and the judge, I blame myself half the time or blame judges. But at the end of the day, sometimes I feel like how a cook's mind thinks sometimes doesn't exactly get passed on to a judge as far as how or why they do a certain thing, or And sometimes I think vice versa.
Well, there's no doubt that I've been one of those guys. There's no way my chicken was that bad, right? I mean, Jordan, you tasted it, right? Bill, you tasted it, right? Was that the score? And we get in that what happened, right?
Yep.
And the thing that frustrates me as a cook is, well, if you just cook more, it'll get better. The law of averages is going to come back to you. And that if I'm only going to cook 8 contests, there is no law of averages going to apply, right?
Yep.
You're going to have to cook 30 contests, in order to get that statistically a normal curve to even a play. But I don't. When you talked about the relationship with judges, I mean, I honestly have great relationship with the judges, and we don't always agree. I'll tell you that. When we ran the Mission 0-100 Hours,
yes,
it's a very special contest for veterans suicide prevention, and I do believe everybody comes in with a different mindset, right?
Yep.
I'm not saying they forgive anyone for not doing the right thing. I'm just saying we come in, with more passion for the cause. And in the judging tent, as the organizer, had my hat on, I addressed them and I thanked them, and I thanked them to think about the reason they're here, beyond the KCBS, beyond, the judging and all that. And then, we go through and talk about the contest, what we're going to do here. And then I take my hat and I turn it around backwards. And I said, now I'm a cook team. I just want to give you perspective. I said, when I turn in pork, I put money, I put tubes and some pull.
Yep.
And I get 2 7s in tenderness, which is an average score, or 7, right? And you don't tell me what was a 7 in tenderness, right? For example, I'm removing the tubes and I'm going to remove the pull, and you're going to get money at the next contest. That way, the next time I get a 7 in tenderness, I know exactly what it is. I said, so if you guys want to see a variety of muscles and in the box and selection, and you're going to, even a 7, I know you don't have to give a comment with the 7, but if you give a 7 in tenderness, at least tell them what was a 7. Was it the money? Was it the tubes? Was it the bowl? Was it bacon? If you know that, great. But I just let you know, because as a cook team, I get that and I go, I don't know what was wrong. I thought everything was, good. We had a record number of comments come in at that contest.
Good.
And it was, I didn't yell at them. I wasn't telling them that. And then, after all the cards are turned in, I'll approach the table and chat with them about the entries. And the grazing table, I've learned, is usually empty of brisket. My favorite, of course. And so I was cheering, and they answered me at the table. And the guy goes, "Oh no, here's how I did it. You can try this." I didn't think that. I didn't bite out of that. And I pulled it apart and I just set that down. So I said, "Sure." And I tried it. He said that one was really good too. I tried it. But, I'm a little bit guessing here, but I said, "Well, I think that's I know that's an A9, and that profile tastes a little bit like the barbecue bus." And I agree with you. It's very good. And I said, this one is a Snake River, and I think it's equally as good. I would have scored it very well. What do you guys think? And he goes, we gave him all 9s. And the barbecue bus was one for the perfect 180 that day, and that was the barbecue bus. The odds that they landed on that table, on that, but it was, the guys thought I was, like, how do you know that, And I said, when you cook A9s and you cook snakes, you learn the texture differences. But that was the conversation we were having, in the tent. And again, I'm working multiple agendas inside here, right? I want them to come back. I want it to be a destination for them to come to Mission 0-100.
Yep.
And I want to get the best. I told them we're going to select judges based on, if they're veterans and or JCUB certified, and if you're not that, please accept my apologies. I'm probably not going to select you. But then over at the ribs, they had plenty of ribs at the grazing table, and me and one of the table captains were back there. We were trying them, and she goes, "If you don't want to mind trying the backside of this bone, okay, I tried the backside." and we're exchanging opinions, right? And this is a table, captain and a judge that I'm not always agreed on, right? We've had difference of opinions, and we're chatting it out, and we started to agree. So for me, this is my way of working through, that feedback loop on paper that
Yep.
you get the opportunity to go through. And I think we need more opportunities like that. But I'll be honest with you, we had really good judges up at Mission 0 hours, so it wasn't too hard to agree with them. But
I've sat with some good ones, and I've sat with some bad ones.
yeah,
Some of
well,
them makes you wonder why they even judge anymore.
the whole reason I ever got involved with the J Cup in the beginning was it was one of the first contests post COVID in Warsaw, Indiana, and I didn't have a good day. My cook was off. I knew it. Things weren't tender. It wasn't going to be a good day. It turned out to be a really record bad day for me. But my brisket was good. It was kind of my saving grace, And, when you get to that point and, you put 4 not so great entries in and your brisket's great, you're like, well, we're going to make this one count, right? We're going to get something out of this. But I kid you, up until the last call, I thought I won brisket, right? Because that was the only thing good, and it was really good. But I put burnt ends in the box, right? And our president stopped by on the way back, turning in early brisket, and I was making the final decision. I think they're good enough, and you know what? It's not like it's going to hurt my overall score, because I don't think I'm going to do well. And he tried it. Oh my, yeah, you nailed tenderness. So I said it, and I got 3 6s from 3 different.
Wow.
Yeah, I got 989, 989, 666, 666. I'm like, wow. And anyway, through process steps I probably shouldn't know, I found out there was 2 people at the table that had never judged KCBS food ever, and they didn't know what a burnt end was, and so I was a little frustrated. And I went to one of the refs and kind of complained, and they said, "Why don't you join the J Cup and tell people how they should judge a burnt end?"
Yep.
And like, let's do that, And then I had to actually, send emails and ask, hey, please, I'd like to be part of this. Here's my experience. I'd like, and and that's kind of what my impetus to get on the committee, for the J Cup was.
Yep.
Nice.
I like the J Cup. If some people complained about it, I thought it was simple and really easy to do.
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction. I don't want it to be the end all be all.
Yeah.
And I think, I tell people there still needs to be a judge, a closed loop on judges. And, there's some areas that are easier than others. And you actually called it out earlier. When you see, all 9s in appearance except for a 6 in appearance or a 7, that's statistically significant. That right. And, you look at the box and you're like, okay, what did 5 judges call a 9 and 1 call a 6, right? So,
to me, if it's a 6, it better be thrown in there like you just ran out of time and just threw all the ribs in a pile. That's a 6.
Yeah, and I get there's some judges that may give you a 9 because it's good enough, So, but when you get a gap of 2, or even 3, there needs to be a feedback loop, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
When I have had scorecards, in Eureka, we had a team that left early, so I picked up their scorecard and everything, and I got a 7 in appearance, all 9s and 1 7 in brisket, and I got a call that day in brisket, and I looked at his pork, and he had mostly 8s and 9s and a 6 in appearance in pork. And I looked at the table when it was the same judge that gave me the 7. So I don't know the other tables at this time, right? I don't know, but I know there's 2 tables that he, statistically in appearance was off. Now, to me, taste and tenderness is going to be subjective.
Oh yeah,
subjective. But we can work on appearance, right? We can do flashcards. We can get 100 master judges to look at boxes. 100 cook teams look at boxes. Come up with an empirical score for that box, and then run it by judges. And then when there's a statistical if it's a 9, you give it an 8. I'm not talking to you. Don't keep going, right? If
Yep.
it's a 9, you give it a 6. We need to have a conversation. If it's a 9,
Yep.
you give it a 7. I need to know why. What are you looking at, right?
Yep.
We need that conversation. So, I mean, that's just one more thing we can do, right? But again, that won't take tons of money because, websites and interactive, you can do with your cell phone, you enter your score and, interactively do
Yep.
that. And that's inexpensive, but it does take time. And it's probably not our number one problem by any means, right? So when you look at that, the cook side and judging and that, we can improve that. And those are ways to do that. But our real problem is around the core technology and growth, and
Yes.
they got to come together because you got to have the money to fix the technology.
I always joke we need a barbecue pitmaster season 1 to start back up so people will join competition barbecue again.
Yeah. I mean, and everybody talks about that, but you realize we have nothing to do with it other than some of our people were in them.
Yep.
So a lot of times I'm like, how do we create our own? Why are we waiting for somebody to be a disruptor, right? I mean, Pitmasters is a positive disruptor.
Yep.
I mean, it created a demand. The home cook looked at it and said, "Oh, I want to do that. That looks like fun." We got to disrupt ourselves somehow, right? So and I'm not a television guy. I'm not a network guy. Thank goodness for Michael Simon, but I don't know that it's had the effect, that Pitmasters has had.
I don't think so. I think a lot of the people that watch that show are mainly already barbecue cooks.
Yeah.
Watching for themselves.
Yes.
Yeah. Looking to see if they see themselves.
Yeah.
Or see their buddies or anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you saw the episode with the Royal, you probably saw me there, right?
Yep.
You saw the back of my head. God, a burnt finger. I told my wife, yeah, I now can say I was on network TV.
On TV now. That's like Rob with Rum Runners. He's a sponsor of the show now, and he had a main big thing. So now I call him TV Rob, and I joke about how he's a TV celebrity, and he's like, no, but
yeah, no, but I think that was the other key thing. I'd like to see, like at the banquet, I'd like to see like a 30 or 45 minute where we just have Post-its. There's no judgment. Ideas to grow, ideas to improve, ideas from. I don't care if you're not a KCBS member, right? I think we need this massive ideation.
yep.
And we can always look at them later for viability, for rationality, but I don't. I think the thought that the board is the smartest in the room is a bad thought, right?
Yes.
I think we ought to be the governance and the leadership and the vision, but how to do it, I don't know that we're the experts or should be considered the experts.
Well, even anywhere, sometimes the person you least expect it can have the best idea.
Yeah. And there's people with other businesses can bring over a concept that can apply to our business, right?
Yep.
And who would have thought of that? But yeah, I don't know. I'm confident there's a somebody out there with some pretty innovative ideas to infuse KCBS.
Yes.
There's no way the sport's going away. I just think we're caught in our own little funk right now, and in a little bit of a perfect storm, like I said, with the COVID and the cost of living. I think scoring can be a nail in the tire if we let it be, but more training to the reps on some of these issues. These are just such weird anomalies. Julie and Rusty Cook, they're some of our better reps.
Yep.
They are. So I don't sit back and the Royal I don't put on any one person.
No.
I think maybe the lack of experience in the 10. I don't remember who ran them in years past, but I know the Grinsteads used to be in there. I chatted with them. They're no longer reps, to my knowledge. But they were at Ohio in one of the contests there, and we were talking about everything they were doing to set up the Royal. And I was like, oh, wow. So, and that's hard to replace that experience, right?
Yes.
And that's why, back to the point, we shouldn't try to have to replace that experience. We should have technology that, is innovative, cloud connected, So those are my hot buttons. The other thing is communication. I think, I shouldn't have to read the website to find board meetings to find out what changes are happening to KCBS.
Yes.
It should be pushed out to me. You've got my email.
That's kind of what it drives me nuts too, because it's like half the time, like, for instance, the overall backyard team of the year, we finally kind of just heard about that now and some of the other changes they were making, but otherwise we wouldn't know anything about it.
Well, and that funny you bring that up, because in 2020, in 2019 they gave out 25 places in the team of the year Masters.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2020 they did 15. Okay. I ended up, I think, 26th in ribs in 2019. So I was the odd man out, Mr. Irrelevant, right? And in 2020, I think I was like 14th pork or 11th pork, something like that. And, but Grant QU was like, in 2020, he was like 16th brisket, and he only cooked like 10 contests, that's Grant. He'll cook 10, win 5,
Yep.
But I told him, hey, you're going to get an award because they give out to 25. Well, I had no idea they'd cut it back to 15.
Yep.
Right. Now, and I'm not saying that's wrong from a budgetary, financial, and all that. I mean, if we got to cut it back, we got to cut it back. But let us know. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, so last year we're in Alabama, and we're at the awards banquet, right? And I was 11th chicken, and so I'm figuring 15, 14, 13, 11. Gotta get ready to move, and they start out with 25th. I'm like, oh, are they going to call 25 and then have 15 and up? Like we do at a contest, right? And no, they're handing out awards to 25. And I'm like, well, when did we change it back to 25? What did I miss any? I was at the table searching my emails, trying to find out, I couldn't find anything. And going out to the meeting minutes, I'm like, and when, kind of like at work, if you're giving back to the employee something like cash, hours, incentives, you want to communicate that. That's
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about all the positives. You kind of want to do this with the negatives. Oh yeah, we're moving it to 15 again. And but you still got to communicate it. And I think there's a lot of those things we could do where we need to push communicate. And push could be an email, or push could be posting it to the webs, to the Facebook community. We shouldn't have to learn it through a friend who read it on the website.
Yep, I completely agree. That's pretty much my hot topics. Is pretty much everything you've hit on is technology, growth, and transparency.
Yeah, but I don't want anybody to think that our reps aren't capable, right?
No.
They are, right? There's this.
I know a lot of good reps.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we don't have reps that we could probably need some improvement. I'm not saying we don't have that. I'm just saying that our biggest problem is the fact that we have to have a level of talent, in excess to run 1980s, 1990s technology, right?
Exactly. Well, Brian, do you have any questions for him?
Nah, he hit everything on the head that I had a question for.
Yep. Well, thank you for coming on here. We wanted to get you a chance to kind of air it out. That way people could see it and make an informed decision on who they want to vote for. So,
yeah,
you got our vote.
Yes, for sure.
Everybody gets out and votes, I really didn't know Thomas, and was able to chat with him on another podcast. And, I'm wildly impressed. It's interesting, you don't know anybody, then you see them and you're like, wow.
Yep.
Very impressive. And the skills, that was the other key thing, right? The skills that they have, I was like, those are good skills we could use, right?
Exactly.
I think Sudeth, comes with some nonprofit background experience. I'm like, ooh, that hits us right in the head, right? You know, I mean, I'm starting to see in the candidates, you know, and I honestly, you know, I know Dave Qualls, but I don't know all the candidates, right? So, you know, getting to know some of the background, either on the podcast or on the bullsheet, I think it's really important because, I mean, I think it's some of the skills they have. It's great to have great ideas, but I'd rather have a, you know, an athlete that's willing to learn, right? A great athlete, you can move positions, right?
Yep.
But if you got a guy that can only hit, you know, 90-mile-an-hour fastballs, and you got a curveball pitcher, what are you doing, right?
Exactly.
But call that Cardinals, right?
Yes. Like I said, thank you for coming on.
Yes, sir.
January, usually like around the 4th or 5th is usually when the voting, I think, starts. It's usually right after the first of the year.
Starts on the 26th
of January.
Of December.
They moved it up this year.
Yeah, they're going to announce it at the banquet on the 13th. We'll know. I think it closes on January 6th or 9th, something like that.
Well, get out and vote. That's one thing about KCBS. I wish they would get bigger voting on their board of directors.
Yeah. It's low percentage. It makes the general election in the U.S. look good.
Yes, it does. Well, thank you for coming on. Enjoy the rest of your night.
I shall. Thanks,
awesome.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
No problem.